I know there's a lot of things you could be doing, so we appreciate you taking time to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And as always, coming to you from the studios provided by First Star Logistics, which are second to none. And as we all know in the game of football, there's offense, there's defense, and the all-important third phase, special teams. And we catch up with Bengals special teams coach Darrin Simmons, who is also the assistant head coach, by the way, as well as special teams coordinator, to talk about that very thing. Danny Smith, Pittsburgh Steelers, is another great one. I think they're the two best in the National Football League. Danny Smith, over 70 years old, has 30 years in the NFL as a special teams coach, 12 of those with the Pittsburgh Steelers, second longest tenured. Number one, Darrin Simmons, 22 excellent seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. And field position is going to be a big deal in this football game. Long field, short field. And most of it is determined by special teams, and most specifically by the punt team. So talk to Darrin Simmons all about that, all about who's playing well for him on special teams, who's playing well for the Steelers, what we can look for. We get our doctorate in special teams from Darrin Simmons. Thanks so much for joining us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And we're coming to you from the studio provided by First Star Logistics as well. Very, very proud of it. It's as good as it gets. And so is our special guest, Darrin Simmons, assistant head coach, special teams coordinator. This guy is as good as it gets in the National Football League. The Bengals have been blessed to have him for 22 years, 22nd year. The longest tenured in the National Football League, 16 years longer than any other offensive or defensive coordinator, never mind special teams coach. The guy that's number two is your opponent this week, Danny Smith. It's 12th year with Pittsburgh. He's been with Philadelphia, Detroit, Buffalo, Washington, been around. I mean, he's over 70 years old. He's been around for 30, I think, in the National Football League. But you got to buy 10 years in terms of, being with that one team. And I know the Bengals are blessed and the fans are appreciative of Darrin Simmons. You're the best.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's always good to be here. It's good to talk.
So it's going to be a big deal, always a big factor in the football game when you play the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they're sound. They're fundamentally sound. Danny Smith, like we talked about, what kind of a special teams problem does he present to you as an opponent?
Well, he's always presented a problem. I think he's a very good coach. He's been with that organization for a long time. I think he understands what it means to be a Steeler. I think he was born and raised in Pennsylvania. He's got a little Cajun in his talk now, but in his drawl. But he was from the Pittsburgh area, so he understands what it means to be a Steeler. And that's the way that they play. They play tough. They play physical. They play hard nosed. They don't. They're not a complicated team. In terms of, their return game, like kickoff return, for instance, they're not complicated in coverage. They do try to complicate things with their punt rush and their punt return game. That's the one area that they kind of expand upon. But they're a tough, physical, hard-nosed group, and which I've always expected out of the Steelers.
When you look at that phase of it, Austin is averaging 11.4 per punt return, which is seventh best in the National Football League. He's got a 73-yard touchdown as well. They obviously, the punting aspect of things is where you can, right now with the kickoff rule being the way it is and everything, the punting game is the thing that can dictate field position, long field, short field kind of thing. How good are they in those two areas, Coach?
Well, I think they made a change. I think their regular punter, they went with the kid from Ohio State. He got hurt who'd been with the Texans, Cam Johnston. And that's who they went with coming out of training camp. And he ends up getting hurt, I believe it's week 1. And they signed Corliss Waitman, who'd been with them in the past before when they'd had some injuries to the punting position and through preseason. And I think he's done a very good job. We practiced against him. We're familiar with him. I practiced against him when he was in Chicago in the preseason. He played in our game against Chicago, so he's a very sound. He's a good NFL punter. And I think with guys like him, he hasn't been a steady starter any place, but I think it's just about opportunity. And I think he's taken this opportunity with the Steelers and ran with it, and he's done a fantastic job. So he's very good as a punter. Their punt return game is also very good. They try to apply pressure. That's where it starts, just like they do on defense. Their T.J. Watt is Miles Killebrew, 28. He's a very good rusher. He's got a bunch of career blocks. He's somebody that we have to know where he's at on every play. And they got other guys too. Tyler Matakevich was a special teams player for them, that a very core player for them, that had been with them historically for a long time. He went several years back. He went to Buffalo. He spent probably 3 years maybe in Buffalo, and now they've got him back. So again, he's obviously very familiar with the Steeler way, and I'm familiar with their schemes and the way they like to do things, the way they like to play. So again, this is a very veteran group that they have. The returners you alluded to is a very good returner, Calvin Austin. I liked him coming out of college. Fortunately for us, he got hurt as a rookie and didn't play a lot. He was inactive a lot of games. I think he was kind of dinged up because of injury. But again, another very dynamic, little explosive punt returner that they have, who's again done a good job for them.
And you look at it, you've got a returner, Charlie Jones, who hasn't been able to go here for the last few weeks, but he's got an 80-yard punt return for a touchdown this season as well. Do you think Charlie might be able to make the dance, or is it too early to call?
I think it's early to say. Again, I'm no doctor. I just wait till they give us the green light to put him out there to practice. And hopefully with this our bye week that we've had off here, hopefully maybe things will kind of turn the corner for him, and we'll get him out there. We certainly need him out there.
What about Rehkow? I mean, he's number 8 in the National Football League in average punts and number 6 in net. And as you mentioned, I mean, Pittsburgh's punter is 10th, I think, net punting. So you got a couple of pretty good punters in terms of, the net flipping the field, don't you?
Yeah, I really I think we do. I think Ryan's done a pretty good job. He had one punt against the Chargers. I know he'd like to have back, but otherwise he punted his butt off. I think he had a 67, a 64, a 63 yard punt. The punt he had there right at the end of the game with 55 seconds to go with the 64-yard punt was really huge in trying to get us to flip the field and force their offense to have to go the length of the field. And so I think he's done a solid job for us. And like I said earlier about Corliss Waitman, I think they got a good punter as well. He's having a good year. Again, it's just he's finally got the opportunity to show what he can do, and he's showing what he can do. He's been very effective.
So they've got a returner, Patterson, who's got 9 kickoff return touchdowns in his career. And I mean, he's kind of it's kind of in the twilight of his career, I guess. But he's still a factor. And Boswell kicking the football as the place kicker. Man, he's got 114 points already, most in the National Football League. 31 of 33, 93.9% conversion. The only 2 misses are from 58 and 62. I mean, he is unbelievable, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been about as good as any kicker in the league for the past 3 or 4 years, really. I really have a high degree of respect for him. Kicking in the conditions he has to kick in, the wind, the cold. And to be as successful and consistent, I guess probably too is a word that I'd like to use with him, is consistent as he's been is really, really difficult. And he's done a good job of that. I have a high degree of respect for him. I think the kickoff thing will work itself out. We'll see how the weather's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be colder this weekend. So again, sometimes that starts to limit the distance on the kicks, and this kickoff return game can start to turn and change a little bit, and you'll see more returns. But again, I think it all kind of depends on what the head coach wants to do. Do you want to kick it short to him and let him return it and try to make a tackle, try to force a fumble, or you want to just take the touchback and say, no blood, no foul, and take it at the 30 and away we go. So maybe the weather will start to change that a little bit, but we'll see how it goes from here.
Let's talk about Money Mac. Obviously, he was in a tough stretch. He was in a lull there. I think it was 4 for 9, if I'm not mistaken. 4 misses in his last 9 opportunities. He's missed 6 on the season. And Boswell, like we talked about, I mean, he's missed 4, 2 last year and 2 this year, and he's kicked a ton of them. Is the bye week probably, or did it? I guess my question might be then, Is the bye week good or bad when you have a player like Money Mac that's in a little bit of a lull? Do you want to try to get him back out there as quickly as possible? Do you want him to kind of decompress, take some time, get away from it? What's the best way?
Well, hopefully,
Yeah,
the only
no
way
choice.
we have is to get away, is for him to get away. So,
Right.
hopefully that'll do the trick. Yeah, it's certainly something he's been in a rut right now, and we got to get him out of as fast as we can. We're gonna, obviously playing a lot of close games, and we've played in a lot of close games, and it's no secret he's got to come through in those situations. Just like the whole operation's got to come through for him. The snap's got to be in the right spot, the hold's got to be good, and he's got to make the kicks. And what I'm hopeful is we were able to get away. They were able to get away for a week here, and kind of hit reset. And the most important kick is going to be his next kick. And I think that's kind of the mentality and the approach we got to take. He certainly, as well as everybody else, feels the levity of what's happened here over the course of the last, whatever it is, month of the season, and we just haven't been as consistent in that area. Something we've kind of relied on. And so hopefully he was able to get away, which he was, and get refreshed here, and maybe we can put on a run here the last half of the season.
He seems to be hooking a little bit, and that's like overswinging a little. Is it just maybe problems like you talked about, a snap, hold, all of it? Is it just it's not as fluid for him, and he's maybe going too fast at the conclusion of his approach to the football? I mean, what do you think it is?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I don't want to overcomplicate it for him either. It's something he's done a million times in his life, and you don't want to change a whole lot. Obviously, we got to change something because you got to make kicks. But I also don't want him to go out there and have him, thinking about, a lot of things. It's like a golfer. When golfers are playing well, they just get out there, they just react, and they just swing freely. And we just got to get him back to that confident spot again, where every time he walks out there, he thinks about nothing but the end result, and that's making the kick, and not worrying about a lot of things that go into it. If am I swinging too hard? My foot too over the top of the ball too much? Am I planting too close? Am I planting too far away? Those are things we're going to work out in practice, and that way in the game, she just goes and reacts to the situation. She reacts to the ball being where it's supposed to be. So we got to get him to think a little less, probably, and just go do what he's done over the course of his career.
There's a lot of things that go into hidden yards. I mean, it can be turnovers, it can be missed tackles, it can be a ton of things. But obviously, punting the football a lot of times will be the biggest contributor to that hidden yards thing. When you track the Pittsburgh Steelers over the years, and I know you track yourself, I mean, and the Bengals have done a phenomenal job of winning that average drive start, winning those hidden yards on a much more consistent basis than not. How's Pittsburgh been in that regard, Coach?
As you can imagine, they've been very good. I think they play to their defense, and they're probably been more conservative with things in terms of trying to just stay on top of field position, play to the defense, let the offense take their shots when they can. We've seen them take some risk, and they take some chances. They took one against the Redskins. They try to fake punt, and it's not something that's really by design. I think they reacted to something that Washington did. They've done this same play before. They did it to us, I believe, in like the same play, like in 2017, or I think that's the last time I saw it, maybe 2014, 2017, sometime around there. It's quite some time ago. But usually they're on the more conservative side, and they don't try to lose the game. They try to let somebody else lose it. But they've always been very, very, very sound. They've always been very good in terms of doing exactly what you're saying, playing the field position, using the weather sometimes as a guide for that also. And when the weather gets bad, they even become more conservative and try to maintain possession and just squeeze the hell out of the other team.
So one thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is doing is, man, they're loading the box every snap. I mean, gosh, man, they have one more than you can block, it seems like, almost every snap in that when you're going against their defensive football team. Does he do that kind of thing? Does he overload it and then not bring it? I mean, does he try to play games? Does he try to make guys think a little bit, or how does he approach that?
Well, they do a lot in terms of their punt rush game, if that's what you're talking about. In terms of their punt rush game, that's where they're probably the most sophisticated. I think he does a really good job of dialing up different schemes that try to take advantage of what you do. And really, for the most part, it's designed to get Miles Kilbrew free. I mean, he's their guy that like I said earlier, he's their TJ Watt. He's their guy that gets home, and he has a knack for getting to the punter. He's got several blocks, like I said, over the course of his career. Some of them even dates back to when he was with Detroit. But they'll do a lot of twisting. They'll do a lot of chips in different types of games to try to tie up the snapper or even chip the snapper to get Killebrew free. So that's one area in the rush game that they are more complicated, and they will take risk there is trying to create pressure. And they've kind of created a block kick culture there a little bit. They've done a good job blocking field goals too.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you look at it, Boswell's elevation is so quick. I mean, so's Money Mack. I mean, these guys get the ball up so quickly. It's like, how the heck do you block that thing? But I guess if you get the perfect rush, you can get it done.
Yeah, I think they try to again apply pressure to different spots to your protection, whether it's inside or whether it's outside. I mean, they use all their starters. They use T.J. Watts out there, Minkah Fitzpatrick's. I mean, every starter they got, they use. Cam Hayward. I mean, every one of their normal big play guys are all in field goal blocks. Some teams don't do that. Some teams take some of their starters out and put others in there. That's not something that they adhere to. I mean, they use all their starters, and they're all very effective doing it. Minkah, if you remember several years ago, Minkah ended up blocking a PAT that cost us in the first game of the year whenever Clark Harris tore his bicep.
Yep.
Minkah ended up blocking a PAT against us at the end of the game and forcing overtime. So, I mean, they're going to use their starters in every area like that, especially on field goal block and even some on the punt rush too, to try to hit a game-changing play, blocking a kick.
Who are some other guys, Coach, that as you look at them, jump out at you in terms of special teams, and then also for yourself, who's been delivering for you?
Well, if I go to them real quick, I mean, a couple of their guys. James Pierre is a guy 42. I think that maybe is probably leading them in tackles. Number 42. He's a solid gunner for him. He plays like the safety positions on kickoff. They got a couple of those. Connor Hayward does a good job, which is Cam Hayward's younger brother.
Yep.
He's a tight end. He's number 83. He does a good job for him. They've got a couple like Medikevich I talked about before. He's getting longer in the tooth in his career, but he's a very experienced player for him. 93 is a good player for him. Mark Robinson, I've always had a lot of respect for him. Peyton Wilson, 41, is another linebacker that's a draft pick for him. Yep. That's a solid athlete and can run and can do things in space. For us, I think Tyson Anderson is kind of the lead dog of our group, is I think what you call it. He's our leading tackler. In fact, I think he's leading the NFL right now in tackles as a gunner. I think he has 8 tackles as a gunner.
Really?
He's been a really, really, really effective player for us. And he really picked up where he left off. I think at the time that he got injured a year ago, knock on wood, he was also leading the NFL in tackles from the gunner position, and he's right back in that same spot again. So it's a big kudos to him for getting himself back and putting in all the time and effort he has to rehab himself and getting him back to being an effective player. I think Akeem Davis-Gaither's been solid for us. Jordan Battle, I think, has been solid for us too in terms of coverage. Those are the top, 3 or 4 guys I think that have really shown up so far this year and been solid players, solid contributors for us, really in the return game and in coverage.
And finally, Coach, with respect to Tyson Anderson, Ed Block Courage Award winner, I mean, couldn't go to a more deserving guy. I mean, this guy is as great a player as he is. He's even a better human being, isn't he?
Oh, he's spectacular that way. And this whole thing this NFL thing, it means so much to him. He plays for the respect of not only his teammates, but he's playing for the respect of his opponents too. And I think being voted on by our team, having that honor bestowed upon him from a player vote is such an enormous thing for him. There's a couple of awards that I think players can get are enormous ones. The Walter Payton Man of the Year, I think, is a huge one, as you know. And,
right.
And the next closest thing is this Ed Block Courage Award. Be the recipient of that or be our nomination from our team is a huge, huge honor. It's something that he doesn't take lightly, I know.
Ed Block Courage Award, Anderson, the Walter Payton Award, Cameron Hayward. I mean, both playing in this football game. We're talking about great people as well as great players, just like you are, Coach. I mean, everybody around the National Football League, not just your players and your fellow coaches, everybody around the National Football League holds Darrin Simmons in the highest regard, and rightfully so. I appreciate you, sir.
Well, I appreciate you guys too. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Have a great one.
Thank you, you too.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.